going to be all about tax deed properties and the pros and cons of the tax deed properties. And I'm going to be doing this in supersonic speed so I can fit in as much information as possible in the shortest amount of time. So first, let's start off and talk about what a tax deed property is. So if you own property, whether it's vacant land or has a house on it or whatever it may be, you are responsible for paying property taxes. Now, when you don't pay your property taxes, you become delinquent and the county gets super mad at you because they want their taxes, obviously. So when you're delinquent in your taxes, the county actually has the right to sell your property. Now, what happens after the first year that you're not paying your real estate taxes, they do what's called a tax lien certificate auction. Now, this is totally separate, a different type of investment from a tax deed sale, and I'll probably do a different video eventually on the tax lien certificate investing because it's a totally different animal. I'm just gonna kind of skip over that for the purpose of this video, but basically after 1 year, we're gonna go to a tax lien certificate auction. So they're gonna auction off these tax lien certificates, and basically the winner of the auction pays the amount of the property taxes owed to the county, and they now have a lien on the property for the amount of the property taxes owed, plus they're earning interest over the years. So eventually, if the owner of the property wants to eventually get caught up on property taxes, they're going to pay the holder of the tax lien certificate for the amount of the property taxes that the tax lien certificate holder paid, as well as interest. Now, if the property owner does not care to get caught up on property taxes, they've got 2 years. And if they don't get caught up on their property taxes, it then goes to the tax deed auction. And this is where the property goes up for sale and can transfer ownership. So all in all, it's been essentially 3 years. 1 year of delinquent taxes before it goes to the tax lien certificate auction, and then 2 years after the tax lien certificate auction, then it goes to tax deed sale auction. Now, this is when we'll start getting into the nitty-gritty about the pros and cons of the actual tax deed sale. So what's super cool is the county doesn't care about anything else except for recouping the money from the property taxes. So basically, all they're going to charge for the opening bid for the tax deed sale auction is going to be the amount of delinquent taxes, the amount of interest accrued by the tax lien certificate holder, as well as any other fees for getting the property up for auction, which are generally only a couple $100s. So all in, you basically owe 3 years of delinquent taxes, plus a couple years of interest, plus any small amount of fees accrued over the time. So all in all, that's not very much money because most of the time that's anywhere from, $3,000 to $10,000 depending on how expensive the property is. So that's one of the biggest perks about these properties is that they're so undervalued for their starting opening bid because the county doesn't care about anything else. They just want their tax money back. Now, the next super cool thing to keep in mind is that once we do go to the tax deed sale auction, all liens are wiped out, with the exception of a few, but I'll get into that later. But all liens are wiped out, including the mortgage. So a lot of times these kind of trump a foreclosure auction because with a foreclosure auction, they're trying to get back the mortgage that's still owed, the mortgage that's been unpaid. They're trying to recoup that money, which is generally a lot of money. Whereas with a tax deed, that gets wiped out. The mortgage is gone. Any liens are gone on the property. First liens, second liens, third liens, it doesn't matter. So the tax deed auction is pretty much going to be the cheapest route you could ever possibly find a property because most people value their property at a lot higher than just what the property taxes are. So you can get properties for dirt cheap. Now, there is a caveat with that because there are also a lot of cons with the tax deed property and why generally it's very hard to get the properties for dirt cheap. So let's start getting into some of the cons of the tax deed properties. So the first is going to be, number one, it's cash only. You're not able to get financing on the property at all. You have to pay the property fully in cash. And the other thing is once the property ends, you have 24 hours to pay up. So you don't have a week to 14 days to close on the property, line up your investors, hey buddy, I got this, let's throw in some money, gather your people. No, you pretty much have to have the money up front and know the max amount you're able to bid for because in 24 hours, if you do not pay for the property, you do not get it. And at 9 times out of 10, they do not allow you to bid again. If you were the highest bidder and you do not pay up, they usually ban you from bidding again. So a lot of times for people, obviously you're gonna have a cap. So you have $30,000 to work with. Well, if the property gets bid at $31,000, you're automatically out because you don't have enough cash to pay for that. Obviously, that's as simple as it goes. So the more cash you have to play with, the better. But obviously the higher you go, the more you're getting closer to market value for the property. And the goal with the tax deed property is to get it for super cheap. Now, the second item is going to be that you need to do your due diligence before bidding on the property. So generally you see the list of properties going up for auction about a month before. They'll list everything that's going for sale. So say there's 50 different properties. It's gonna be pretty much sight unseen. If you're in the area, you can obviously go drive by the property, check it out, see if you can peek in windows if nobody's living in there. Sometimes people are still living in there because it is an owned property, but these are gonna be sight unseen. So you need to try and do as much due diligence as you can beforehand. Check out the clerk of court's records, see if there's any other weird liens on the property. see the chain of title, make sure there's just nothing weird with the property, nothing that's going on missed. Because once again, in 24 hours, you have to pay up for this property. You are gonna be the new owner in 24 hours if you're the highest bidder. You don't have a 15-day contingency period with most sales to do your inspections, do this, blah, blah, blah. This is immediate. So you need to be ready, and you need to understand that you're ready to be the owner of that property on an auction day. The other thing is going to be that, like I mentioned before, it does extinguish most of the liens on the property, but it doesn't extinguish all of the liens on the property. So any government liens associated with the property are not going to be wiped out. So any type of municipal liens, any type of code violations, and any other government liens on the property are going to remain on the property. So if they've got a stupid amount of racked up municipal liens or code violations or something that's totaling thousands of dollars, you need to keep that in mind, because you're gonna have to pay that once you're the owner, or you're gonna really have to fight with the county to see if you can get those liens removed. Which is really a gamble, because sometimes they'll remove them and sometimes they won't. So you need to be prepared in your due diligence to be finding these things and making sure even when you're bidding at your highest bid, if you're the winner, you can still afford paying off some of those liens. So another super sucky thing with tax deed properties is you'll see the list of properties going up for auction about a month in advance, like I mentioned before, and say we start with 50 properties. Well, the owner has all the way up until the auction, and actually all the way up until you turn in your money to purchase the property to pay up their property taxes. So a lot of times you'll get up to auction day and you'll have done your due diligence on 50 properties, you find the 3 that you want to bid on, oh, these are cool, these look good, I like these, here's my max bid amount, here's my due diligence, I've spent hours working on all of these properties. And you get to auction day and you're like, wait, we went from 50 properties, now there's only 16 available, and all of these suck. These aren't the ones I wanted to bid on, the ones I wanted to bid on are no longer there. And the reason is people like to play a game when it comes to paying property taxes. I don't get it. It seems stressful, you're about to lose the property, but some people understand the system and pay up the property taxes right before the auction, and then the property gets taken off the market for going to tax deed auction sale. So that's a super crappy thing, because I know it's happened to me when I'm sitting there for the auction, I'm ready to go, and then the property is no longer there. Another big thing to keep in mind is a tax deed sale clouds a title. So if you're trying to get financing on a property and there's any kind of cloud on a title, the lender is generally not going to carry through with giving a loan on the property. So this is very important when it comes to wanting to purchase the tax deed property for doing some type of flip and then selling once it's renovated. If there's a cloud on the title, you're not going to be able to sell it to somebody who's going to need financing, which 9 times out of 10 is most people. You could probably sell it to somebody who wants to buy cash, but that really limits the amount of buyers that you have available to you for buying the property. So it's very important to get the cloud on the title cleared up right away, because sometimes it takes a few months to get it done, and it also takes a couple $1,000s. So there's 2 ways of going about clearing up the cloud on the title. First option is going to be to file a quiet title action, and this is going to be where you have someone sending out notices to any past lien holders to basically quiet any claims that somebody might still have on the property. This could take a couple months, and it also costs a few $1,000s. So just factor that into your numbers and into your timeline. The other option is going to be to hire a consultant to do a title certification, which is basically going to be where they go into the property history and make sure there's going to be no claims left on the property, and work with the title agency to clear up the cloud on the title. This option is generally a little bit cheaper and doesn't take as long, but it's still going to take at least a few weeks, maybe a couple months, and a few $1,000s still. Now, the final sort of con to tax deed sales is going to be that they are highly competitive these days. This is no kept secret. A lot of investors know that you can get these properties for super dirt cheap if you're lucky, and so the properties generally get overbid and into a price point that just doesn't make the property worthwhile. So since there is so much competition, it does make it very hard to get a property for a super low price that is going to be worth your time. So all in all, that was a ton of information, and tax deed properties can be a super good investment, but you have to be super patient and you have to be present at all of the auctions to hopefully eventually get the one tax deed property that isn't overbid, that's worthwhile, that's worth your time, that isn't totally run down, and that's gonna make you some money. I personally believe that tax deed properties can be a super good investment, but like I said before, you just have to be patient, don't give up, just stay on it. There are a lot of cons that make it very hard to get a good deal on the property, but if you just stick with it and keep checking back every single month, I'm sure over time, just statistically, you will eventually secure a deal. They say the #1 reason why people will fail in real estate is because they give up. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today on tax deed properties. I'll let you decide whether they're hidden gems or if they are flops. And leave a comment down below if you have had any experience with a tax deed property, because I would love to hear about it. All right, you guys, I will talk to you later. Catch you in the next one.